Today might be one of the most difficult issues for you to handle, but something that we must discuss, and that is what kind of a case do they have against this Tyler feller? And is it a slam dunk? Seems obvious, doesn't it? How many of you great people think that it's going to be just a piece of cake, right? They've got him. There's a confession, right? Well, maybe. Well, there's evidence, right? Don't we have the evidence of him? Well, sort of. Maybe. I hope. What do you mean you hope? Well, you keep saying well a lot. Yeah, well, I'm not sure. I am not sure. And this is something which bothers people tremendously. It's not whether you know. I believe right now, if I had to be a detective, just a detective, I would say, oh, he did it by himself. There is just simply no evidence. Could be. Something could pop up later on. You might find out that he had a handler. He had somebody who was advising him. He was in telecommunications with somebody. That could very well be. There's no evidence of this, though. There's no evidence of this now. But it could be. It could be. He might. But there's no evidence of this. And that's all a trial is. It's evidence. It's not what we think. It's not what we think. It's the fact that we have this issue. And that is that we have to prove, that the prosecution has to prove beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. And the problem that people have with this is that for some reason people feel that they have some ability to weigh in on this in terms of legal matters. And the reason why is because they feel intuitively connected to all matters juridical. They feel that they know these things, that they feel that they just kind of know how things are. And they feel that they are of the ability, of the mindset to articulate and negotiate and navigate the various minefields. Let me give you a little problem. The young lady, Irina, who was killed by that vermin, there may be a difficult time they have with federal law because the federal statute they are trying to charge him with deals with trains. And this is an intra-Charlotte light rail, not really a train. We're not sure whether federal jurisdiction would even apply to that. So that may be something that you may think, oh, it's trifling. No, that basically is their entree into federal court. So just keep that one in mind. So we're going to be talking about that. Already people are weighing in. One says, here, my friend says, Jason says he's a patsy. How do you know that, Jason? Good buddy. How do you know that? Is Sal here, by the way? Our good friend Sal Angelo? Sal called me this morning in the middle of the night. Bless his heart. How do you know he's a patsy, my friend? How is he a patsy? Tell me I'm all ears. Why is he a patsy? How do you want this? Hubbleson says, I want both trials to be in state court and televised. I don't like televised trials. I used to. I don't like them now. I don't like them. I want it nice and clean and sterile and get them. This is not, I know the Sixth Amendment provides for a speedy and a public trial. I don't want that. Why do people think it's a patsy? And you have people say like, well, I have a gut feeling. I have a feeling. We'll get to that in a moment. But something I want to talk to you, which is very important to Alex Jones. Alex, by the way, has been superb. I cannot say enough about Alex. Alex is incredible. And what I've noticed about Alex is that he is going to be back, I think, tomorrow. And he was saying that he believes there is going to be basically false flags at black colleges, various leftist events. There's going to be a problem. And there's going to be serious problems. And I am not in the position to say, oh, no, Alex, come on. What are you talking about? There's no problem. What are you? Come on, please, please, please. But when you talk about civil war and false flags and blackouts and EMPs and riots. It's not tomorrow's nightmare. It's today's reality. And we've been talking about this. We're always ahead of the curve. You know that. And the systems that we trusted are cracking. They're falling apart. They're disassembling. 1 week without food, and you'll learn fast. Cash, cards, credit, Bitcoin, even gold won't feed your family. Survival isn't theory. It's primal, primordial, instinctual. Food, water, energy, ammo. That's why My Patriot Supplies 3-month food kit matters. Over 2,000 calories per day. 22 meal varieties. Shelf life up to 25 years. And right now you get 4 weeks free. A $247 bonus. The world has changed, my friends. Hunger is the oldest weapon of control. Don't wait for disaster to prove it. Preparation isn't paranoia. It's survival. Click the link in the description. Preparewithlionel.com. Preparewithlionel.com. Secure your food. Secure your family. Secure your future. Preparewithlionel.com. Okay? Now let's talk about something. Again, your thoughts are fantastic. I just want to know the truth for once. You sure? I think we know the truth. I think we know what happened. I think there's no, I personally feel, just from what I've seen, that it's him. But proving it beyond a reasonable doubt is a different story. Absolutely not. We just need the truth. We just need the truth. Why so complicated? Why so complicated? Well, the reason why it's so complicated is very simple, is because you're talking about perhaps maybe putting somebody to death. We have this thing about due process, and it's pretty much of a stickler for this. Okay? You understand this? Now here we go. Look at this. At 11:49, he was seen walking towards the campus. No weapon, already limping after changing clothes. What was he doing outside of the campus prior? And that gave him another 30 minutes to limp into position. So he's guilty? So he's guilty? You know what you're saying? Our good friend says, it seems like pretty sloppy work on the Kirk case to get a conviction in a legitimate court of law. The Luigi case was sloppy work too, such as the Adams perp parade, which could pollute jury pools. To an extent, yeah. But the Luigi case, you had manifestos, you had the gun that he made, the ghost, you had all kinds of things. Here we have a riot. Do we know anything about a rifle, rather? Do we know anything about whether the forensics matter? Jeff says, Lionel, you're making money off of murder. Everybody's making money off of murder. Media, folks, everybody. People who raise money on behalf of this. People are saying, and to make money off of murder, there's this pesky Sixth Amendment right to counsel, and that means you got to go in and you got to challenge it. It's not a case I would want, because I would feel that under the canons of ethics, I couldn't be I just wouldn't be zealous. It's not one that Luigi I would have an easier time defending. Because remember, defending doesn't mean I think he's innocent. It's I think he's got a case. So let's talk about this. I want you to take everything out of your mind, everything out of your head, clear your mind, clear your head. And the case that Tyler Robinson really never confessed to. See, while mainstream media reports have painted a picture of Tyler Robinson, the 22-year-old suspect in the shooting death of conservative activist Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University, as having, quote, confessed in some capacity. He confessed. A closer examination of the available information reveals significant holes in this narrative. I'll lay out the argument step by step that Robinson never truly confessed to anyone in a meaningful, verifiable, legal way. Certainly not in a manner that's consistent with conviction. Ryan says left-wing outlets on YouTube are already laying the groundwork that if the killer is confirmed a lefty, they'll claim the FBI cannot be trusted. They're terrified they'll have to own this one and uncertain how to defend. No, I wouldn't worry about that. If the killer is confirmed a lefty, they'll claim the FBI cannot be trusted. Well, I don't think it can be trusted. Kash Patel has to step down. Kash Patel is just, I think in how I feel. There's no. So let's talk about this though. Robinson never really confessed. He will claim to anyone in any meaningful, verifiable, legal way. And certainly not in a manner that holds up as ironclad evidence and provides proof beyond a reasonable doubt. You see, this includes pointing to inconsistencies in reports about any alleged admission to his father and highlighting why proving the case against him could be extraordinarily difficult without stronger direct links. Now, this isn't to declare innocence, but to underscore the weaknesses in the prosecution's position. This is based on public reports. Remember, I, as a defense lawyer, merely have to get one juror to agree with me. Hang up the jury. Hang them up. Mistrial, just one. That is as close to an acquittal as you can get. No prosecutor wants to proceed afterwards because of that. See, there's no direct official confession that exists. What we have is secondhand and vague. Robinson hasn't confessed to law enforcement or in any official capacity, as explicitly stated by Utah Governor Spencer Cox. Instead, he's been described as uncooperative with investigators, refusing to provide any statements or assistance that could clarify his involvement. This lack of a formal confession means prosecutors can't rely on his own words against him. Maybe, I'll explain it. Everything hinges on external evidence and interpretations from others. If he were to say, yes, I killed him, that is a confession. That is not hearsay because it's an admission. It is an exception to the hearsay rule. But does it have indicia of reliability? Is it trustworthy? The only purported confession stems from private family interactions, specifically claiming that Robinson implicated himself to relatives or a family friend. However, this is not necessarily what you think. Sparky says there's been plenty of guilty people go free from sloppy work from investigators to the courtroom. I imagine it's worse now than ever. There's a crisis in competence across U.S. government and industry. Oh, I think you're right about that. But one thing I would do is we have a rule. Nobody reports anything to the press. Nothing. Because his team is going to say, no, they said, Tyler, is this you? Yeah, that's me. I think that's me. Is it AI? I don't know. You see the stories about the AI? They're putting up AI pictures already. Well, that's not a picture. That's an AI picture. Well, who put an AI picture up? I don't know. I can't tell. I'm not in control of this. If somebody puts an AI picture up, that could, I don't know what that is. Mr. Robinson, did he tell you he killed Charlie Kirk, or that's him in the picture, or that he was there? Did he? Or maybe he was involved, but what is that it? Now, it's hearsay, remember, but it's an exception to the hearsay rule because it's an admission. The theory being that it's reliable because most people don't say things against themselves if it's not true. We have statements relayed second or third hand without recordings, witnesses outside the family. It's very interesting. Corroborating details that couldn't be challenged in court. For example, reports indicate that after authorities released surveillance images, Robinson's father confronted him, leading to some form of an admission. But even here, the language is fuzzy. He reportedly admitted to being the person in the photos, but expressed a preference for suicide over surrender, which could be interpreted as despair or evasion rather than a full confession to the act of murder. And remember, you don't have a full police report. You don't know what anybody said. You don't know what anybody said. None. Nothing. It's a very interesting thing. Critically, no source proves verbatim quotes from Robinson, that we know of, himself in these family exchanges, leaving room for misinterpretation, for exaggeration, and even coercion within a family dynamic, or somebody who extrapolates it. Robinson's family, described as devout Mormons and registered Republicans with ideologies that apparently differed from his own, had every incentive to act quickly to distance themselves and cooperate with authorities, potentially framing vague statements as a confession to resolve the situation. It's very interesting. There are conflicting stories about alleged confessions to his father, undermining his credibility. You see, media coverage isn't uniform on what exactly happened during Robinson's interaction with his father. Matthew Carl Robinson, his father, creating clear inconsistencies that cast doubt on the entire story. So here's kind of a breakdown. Some outlets frame it as a straightforward confession. Robinson allegedly told his father that he was involved after being shown the photos, prompting the father to involve a youth pastor, a family friend, and court security officer, who then contacted U.S. Marshals. This led to his arrest at the family home in Washington County after a 33-hour manhunt. Was that a confession? Remember, confession versus an admission. Confession is the admission to the well-pled allegations of the case. All of the elements of the crime. Admission could be, yeah, I was there. It could be a part. It could be a bigger story. Now, other reports soften or contradict this. Governor Cox has publicly stated that Robinson has not confessed to murdering Charlie Kirk, emphasizing instead that relatives alerted authorities that he had implicated himself. And the term implicated is notably vaguer than confessed. It could mean anything from expressing knowledge of the event, knowing that other people did it, to making ambiguous comments under stress. See, this distinction matters legally, as implication doesn't equate to admission of guilt. So, and then adding to the murkiness of the whole thing, pre-arrest messages Robinson sent to friends show him joking about a doppelganger being responsible, which reads as a denial or a deflection rather than any admission. If he was truly confessing to family around the same time, why would contradictory tone in private chats? And by the way, Kash Patel, we still don't know whether we've talked to those people. I would grab those people so fast. I want all those people on Discord. I want to talk to them. This also suggests that the family confession and the confession story might be overstated or misinterpreted. Perhaps maybe influenced by the father's recognition of surveillance images. Maybe a desire to intervene. I don't know. But these variances aren't minor. They highlight how initial reports that are often based on law enforcement press conferences evolved or were clarified, and how you are taking this and you're extrapolating. He confessed. I had a rather vituperative man today call up. He was absolutely frightening. Gracie says, Leo dad knows to call an attorney for this. Well, yeah, I don't know what that means, but we don't know if is he a law enforcement officer? Is he a deputy, or did he work with? I don't know. But listen, he called. He basically called he called somebody. He really went out of his way to turn his son in and fast. I wouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. My paternal instincts would kick in further. I'd say, I'm going to wait on this one. So Utah could be a state. Mormons had to do a hardcore public relations campaign, culminating in Donnie and Marie. Before they were a rough gang who wouldn't give you their own. The father snitched. We don't know, again, Sparky, we don't know the real story. There's Carrie C, by the way. Thank you, Carrie C, with a super sticker. Thank you, Carrie C. Now, let me go back with this. Remember, all I need is one juror. One juror. I get a hung jury. I don't have to prove anything. I just have to create reasonable doubt. One juror. This narrative is far from settled. Now, in a trial, defense lawyers could exploit these discrepancies to argue that the confession is not unreliable hearsay, because remember, an admission is an exception, but it's just unreliable. It's inconsistent. We can't really, there's a reasonable doubt. What did he say? He was there? Is this you in this picture? Yeah, that's me. Now, it's going to be tough. Remember, Tyler is not going to take the stand himself. I would love to see that. Tyler says, I didn't do that. That's not what they said. They said, is this me in your picture? And I said, it's AI, or I don't know what this is. I wasn't there. That's not me. Is that you in the roof? Nope. Come on, that's you in the roof, isn't it? Nope. Let me tell you something. Right off the bat, you want cross-examination of family members? You want them up there? And if for some reason they get the press, like, why are they so? I mean, listen, people love Charlie Kirk, but I would be really, really hard pressed to turn in a family member. I would. I don't care what they did. I just, a little bit. I would be the last one. I would, if somebody's a rabid dog. I've got this crazy, violent, horrible, terrible, whatever. But that's me. But then again, you don't know. Just like Ted Kaczynski's brother ratted him out. Now, proving the case against him is going to be difficult due to circumstantial evidence and gaps. Remember, circumstantial evidence is good, but it's there might be a way to explain this. Even setting aside the confession issue, the evidence against Robinson appears largely circumstantial, making a conviction far from guaranteed, especially in a high-profile case where reasonable doubt ends the case. Remember, as a defense lawyer, I don't have to prove anything. I just stop it. Prosecutors would need to connect the dots without Robinson's cooperation. And several weak links stand out. A whole bunch of stuff. You've got surveillance and identification issues. Images show a person in common attire, dark hat, glasses, shirt, whatever, with an American flag and a motif, arriving on campus hours before the shooting. Now, while family identified Robinson from these facial features aren't clearly visible, and similar clothing isn't unique. Without DNA or fingerprints. Now, they said today that they found DNA or something at the scene. His DNA. Okay. I want to see more about that. But without DNA or fingerprints tying him directly to the scene, there's nothing that even puts him there. Now, the question you got to ask is the fact that he was there, why would he be on the roof? Let's assume you had the DNA. He's on the roof. He's involved. Does that mean he's guilty? And the weapons. There was a Mauser 30-06 that was found wrapped in a towel in a wooded area near campus with engraved casings featuring memes and phrases like, hey, fascist, catch, or if you read this, you are gay. Right. Remember, his roommate is a male. Now, intriguing, but leaking into Robinson relies on Discord messages from an account named Tyler, referencing the rifle's location. However, clarifications reveal these weren't planning messages, but post-shooting recounts from Robinson's roommate, transcribed as transgender in some reports, about some note left by Robinson. Discord itself denied any evidence of violence promotion on their platform, further muddying the chain of custody. So forensics might match the rifle to the shooting. Maybe. Do we have any kind of Is there anything recovered from Charlie? Was it through and through? Did we get this? Is the round salvageable? How do you know that rifle did anything? I don't know. But proving Robinson handled it beyond hearsay could falter without direct prints or witnesses or something. Then there's motive and background gaps. You see, reports note that Robinson had become more political and expressed dislike for Charlie Kirk, reviewing him as full of hate. But this is kind of anecdotal from the family, and his background as an electrical apprenticeship student with no prior criminal record doesn't scream premeditated assassin, though it could be. He could have been, quote, radicalized. His family's Republican ties and their church involvement contrast, obviously, with his views, potentially allowing a defense to argue external influences or mental health factors, though no such diagnoses are public yet. But also the pressure they had to distance themselves from this kid. He would be an embarrassment to them. Obviously, this guy kills this scion, the dauphin of the Christian rights. Then there's other challenges. With Robinson silent and not cooperating, investigators admit they're poring over evidence with little help. In a politically charged case like this, jury bias, pro or anti-conservative, could amplify doubts. Novel forensic tech mentioned in some reports, for example, tracing the rifle and all that, might help. But if it's untested in court, it could be challenged. So you don't want to introduce new forms of evidence, new forms of science that aren't uniformly accepted as reasonable and rational and acceptable and trusted. Overall, without a confession or smoking gun direct evidence, the case rests on a web of inferences that a schooled or experienced defense lawyer could really hack. And not to attack these people, but just to say to the jury, are you sure? Can you prove this? And at the end, they'll say, I really can't. I mean, it looks bad. Is that enough? It looks bad? So the idea of a confession crumbles under scrutiny. It's unsubstantiated hearsay, with an exception, with conflicting portrayals across many sources, and the evidentiary foundation is shaky enough to make prosecution really tough. This doesn't exonerate Robinson, but I hope it illustrates how media headlines can simplify a complex legal reality. And this is something you got to remember, this is also Kash Patel trying so hard to be relevant, trying so hard to be the big guy. The big guy. This is important. This is critical. This is something which is the most. Now, here is the thing. I do not know. Hang on. There is something which is very. Sparky says, a Reddit was used in Nepal for regime change. NGOs and government intel routinely participate in Reddit to manipulate the unwitting, to overthrow their government. Good, they'd never use it nefariously in the U.S. That could very well be. But, so the thing I'm saying to you is this. Old Painless says, it's a slam dunk. No, it's not. Any reasonable doubt. Any reasonable doubt. Ladies and gentlemen, how do you know he did it? When you go back in the jury room and you say, I know. Well, how do you know and why do you know? What is it specifically? What is it? What do you really know? Well, he was there. I guess he was there. And his girlfriend, his boyfriend, because he's gay, was trying to get some type of a sex change. Okay, and Charlie always talked about transgenders. Okay, fair enough. What else? What else? Well, um, what? Do you know this rifle killed Charlie Kirk? The bullet, the round came from this rifle. Was this fired? Yes, it was fired. Okay. Did you recover the round from his neck, or was it a through and through? Did it hit something? Was it salvageable? Assuming it was, can you do some kind of a forensics comparison? Is that bullet from that? If it's true, that's something. That's really important. Then, if his DNA is on the rifle itself, there's no chain of custody problems. It's interesting. It's interesting. It is beyond interesting. It is fascinating. You see this? That's all I'm saying to you. That is all I am saying to you. It is fascinating to me. And what's interesting is, if we go back again, I have to get one juror to say, ladies and gentlemen, if you go back into that jury room and you find Mr. Robinson guilty, you're going to have to ask yourself why. And if you say to yourself, why? Because I know it. Because I know it. I know it. Just like I know Israel's involved. We'll get that one going again. Did you see how Harrison, what is his name, our good friend from Charlie, from Alex Jones, Harrison Smith is his name? Harrison Smith, yes. He said, I've been talking to some people. And I'm here that, Charlie was a little nervous because he was saying some things about Israel. Okay. Well, do you have any connection to Israel? No, but I would think there would be. Okay. Do you have any connection to Israel? Any proof? No. Not proof per se, but no, I don't. Sparky says, maybe he wasn't gay, so he insisted his roommate transition first. Yeah. Well, there's an old joke about how do you know your roommate's gay, and I'm going to leave it at that. But you might know the punchline to that, and it's very, very funny. If I had to guess right now, just like in the case of Mangione, he was solo. He wasn't a conspiracy. He didn't work with any kind of outside agencies. He wasn't a part of it. No, he just did it on his own. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Now, again, remember something with this Israel thing, because they still love this. You see, for those who are, by the way, any brand new folks here? Any brand new? If you are, welcome. Are you brand new to this? Maybe you're here. Maybe you listen on WABC, or maybe, I don't know. But you might be saying to yourself, what exactly is this Israel connection? And you see, somebody will bring up the term USS Liberty, and that's what you always have to say whenever the notion of Israel comes up. I like the Lavon affair in 1954. That's more esoteric. If you throw in a Lavon reference, that's pretty good. But I have the following scenario in my mind, and this is a hypothesis. This is Bibi and the deep state, and everybody's saying, who was the idiot? Who was the profound idiot? Whoever did this. Who was the profound fool whoever allowed this, whoever permitted this, who did this, who martyred the most popular person. Last night at the Emmys, there's this woman for the show Hacks. This is Ellis Fearless. Jean Smart. We saw Jean Smart on Broadway, and she's in the show Hacks. And the woman, I think it's Lorraine Newman's daughter, I think. She's up there. She's doing Palestine and I think Charlie Kirk references. I'm not really sure. And they just don't get the memo. They don't get the memo. I will never understand how doctors and lawyers and politicians and people and nurses will ever interject their own politics into what's going on. If you have any children, I want you to bring them aside and say, I want to ask you something. I'm going to give you something called, it's an expression called pick the hill you want to die on. And what that means is simply this. It means that it is most probably in your best interest to not necessarily say something, go out on a limb, unless it is something you're willing to bet your career on. Not only that, you're going to sound like somebody who is one of these political hacks. I would never, ever, ever use my position in sports or entertainment. Now, you might on your own, just separate from this, you can be involved in charity. You could be, nobody minds that. If you work for St. Jude's or if you're some type of an advocate or proponent of certain types of charities and the like, you're lauded, you're heralded for that. But in this particular case, what's very interesting is that people might say, we really don't like what you're doing. We don't like this. And we find this notion of what you're doing to be despicable. We find it to be despicable, and we find all of this despicable because this is something which is horrible. This is a beloved person. There were more, we couldn't believe last night, the numbers of people who are in New Jersey alone. It was unprecedented, unbelievable. The people, the candlelight vigils, Kennedy Center. There are people right now who are saying, I want to go to church. Churches are seeing a resurgence in new, heretofore unaffiliated young people who want to know about Christianity. If Bibi Netanyahu or some rogue agent or some outlier decided to take out the most popular person today because they dared to go against the political narrative, he is certifiable. Sparky says, should your boy Netanyahu have gone on his TV campaign? Did he come across as protesting too much, a la Shakespeare? Did it make it worse for Israel? Make it worse for Israel? No, nothing could make it worse. Why he's saying anything, I have no idea. I think he lives in a world that I just don't think so. Charlie Kirk was saying this is ethnic cleansing. Look, the president very, very, very soon will one day announce, I've had it. He may not say it officially, but he will tell Bibi, this is the cost benefit analysis means that you are out of the picture. This is a boozing lattle, as they say. Now, the other people as well, as you know, they love this fact where they will say things like, this seems like a professional job. This seems like, and everybody's an expert on this. I don't know what was professional. But I will tell you this, and I want you to listen very, very carefully. Believe me when I say this. There are people who are going to be shocked when they find out the actual and the total facts as adduced, as presented, as correlated. You are going to be shocked. You should never give out anything in the news, not to intimidate witnesses. Let the witnesses feel like, nobody cares about this. Come on, talk to us. What did you see? What did you hear? Would you help us? Were you on the Discord thing? What did you say? Did he ever say anything? What did he say? Do you have copies of that? Hey, Discord, do you have any copies of this? Did he ever say to anybody? What if he never said, I never said I killed anybody? I said I might have been there or whatever. Being there is not alone. It's not enough. Not only that, if you have a conspiracy, you have to conspire with somebody, unless you're Ghislaine Maxwell. So what I'm trying to tell you, my friends, what I'm trying to put in perspective is before you jump up and down, and you basically celebrate his conviction and guilt. This case is absolutely fraught with problems, replete with problems. This is not in any way. I had a guy this morning on WABC who said, what, are you crazy? He confessed. No, he didn't. I mean, some people said he did. Did he confess? Well, what do you think that means? That may not be enough for reasonable doubt. That's a different story. Reasonable doubt is a different story. Reasonable doubt stops the train. Anything, if I say, you know what, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if you have that one moment where you say, you know what, I just don't know about this, that's reasonable doubt. That's reasonable doubt. We had a lawyer one time who used to say this thing, and I can't, to me it was objectionable, but he always got away with it. He said, have you ever left your home and then thought, did I lock the door? Did I turn that stove off? I don't want the cat walking. Did I? And then you go back. You go back home. You go back home to check the door. That's reasonable now, he said. Well, I don't think that's the definition. But that's all it takes. All you have to do, my friends, if you hold up that x-ray and you say, you know what? I think this is a fracture. But it might be the angle. I can't say for sure. I probably is. I bet anything on it, but that's reasonable enough. It's not that he didn't do it. It's they can't prove it. And by the way, they may not be able to prove it, not because they're incompetent, but the facts don't. You know why there are cold cases? Because there's no evidence. There's no evidence. There's no evidence involved. A cold case could very well be there's no evidence involved. None. Klaus von Bülow, Sonny von Bülow. Oh, he did it. Everybody thinks. But there was a little reasonable doubt. There were some problems. O.J. Simpson, somebody thought, oh, he absolutely killed these people. But the point that I'm saying is that what you think in real life, what you think as far as common sense, in law doesn't work. We don't care who did it. Can you prove it? And when you did prove it, was there anything that you used that was verboten, that might have been inadmissible? Was the defendant denied a fair trial? Not guaranteed a perfect one, but a fair. Was there anything unfair about it? And so much can be done. Remember Diddy. I still can't believe that he walked away. He walked on federal trafficking cases. So my dear friends, my great friends, my lovely friends, my beautiful friends, to Sparky, the inimitable Sparky, the ineffable Carrie C., thank you. To our good friend Gracie Loves George, and of course the inimitable Ryan. God bless Ryan. Thank you for this. Also, don't forget to follow Mrs. L at Lynn's Warriors. Lynn's Warriors. She's got so much. Right now as we speak, she's on a conference call, a media strategy meeting with her various groups in Washington on how to deal with basically digital safety and what's happening coming up. She's on the phone. She's constantly working. This is what we do, constantly. She more than others. So please follow her, support her. Lynn's Warriors at YouTube. All right, my friend, Jeff Yezek. Jeff, thank you so much. And there he is. Sparky says, as a Philadelphia Netanyahu has used his insight of America and Americans to great success. But maybe his insight only applies to boomers. Can he no longer depend on this insight? Yes. He is, I think, by virtue of the fact there's a certain degree of desperation there, because remember, people hate him. There are more people who despise him. And they realize the only thing, maybe if he can pull something off, if he can somehow eliminate all of the Palestinians in the name of a war on Hamas, or maybe they just left, or I don't know, you can call it whatever you want. That would really change the calculus, because I don't think most Israelis would object to being the only people in their country. But that is for a different issue. That has really nothing to do with this, because unless you can show me otherwise, there's no connection to Israel or Mossad or Bibi or anybody. None. All right, dear friends, make sure you're subscribed to Lionel Nation. We'll see you later. We got a little later start today because I'm just busier than you can imagine. Later on, I have more to say. So anyway, thank you. I hope you listen. I hope I made you think like, oh, it's interesting. I never thought about that. Gee, I thought it was open and shut, but I guess it's not. That's what I want you to do. I want you to think. And remember, the monkey's dead. The show's over, sue you. Dead.